Do you have your phone? Can you time public comment? Yep. Not yet. All right. We will call to order this meeting of the Woodford County Board of Education on August 22nd, 2022 at the Woodford County High School, and would like to welcome everyone that's attending. We appreciate all of you coming out tonight. For the roll call, all board members are present in person. And would you stand and join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, moving on in our agenda, under proposed amendments to the agenda, I would like to move item D to the top of the agenda, and we have some folks here with the community to speak about this tonight. It's kind of an exceptional night for Woodford County Schools, and I'm very pleased to have our community partners here to be recognized for their part in that. Emily Downey, would you want to come up and share a little bit about this? And Courtney Quire? And let me say thank you on behalf of the board to both of you for working diligently on this and everything that you have done for the students of Woodford County.
Well, good evening and welcome. I'm Emily Downey. I'm with the Chamber of Commerce and Tourism. It was brought to my attention over the past couple of weeks the amount of folks in Woodford County who maybe are food insecure and would come to school and have to make tough decisions. Their families, the stress that those kids would shoulder. A lot of kids know and understand or feel when their parents are stressed out and having to make really tough decisions. And having a kindergartner this year myself, that really hit home to make sure that these kids could come to school and they could do what they're supposed to be doing at school, learning, growing, having socialization with their friends, and not having to shoulder some of these adult responsibilities and worries that come along with food insecurity. So we worked together with the community. It was a very simple ask. I have to say that we have some extraordinary folks in Woodford County who do extraordinary things, and we are so thankful for their talents and their treasures that they gave to this. So we have a check presentation to make. It's not on behalf of me at any stretch. I'm just here to kind of give these guys some recognition for their hard work, for the generosity from the community, from the businesses, and of course every business has a face behind it. And so there are some amazing individuals here tonight that have made all of this possible. So we do have a check presentation. I don't know if Courtney wants to say a little bit while I go get the check.
I second everything Emily said. She was amazing. I mentioned to her about our reduced price families. We usually have around 120 to 150 families who qualify and just barely do not qualify for free meals. So she has been amazing reaching out to the local businesses to get these donations.
It's much appreciated. Also, Mayor Grayson Vandegrift is here representing the two mayors and Judge Executive Kay. Grayson, if you would like to say anything. And we would ask Tim and Anna Cambron and John Center and Lisa Krall and Bill and Felicia Quigg to come up front when you can, please.
On behalf of the City of Midway, on behalf of Woodford County Judge Executive James Kay, and on behalf of Versailles Mayor Brian Troggett, we want to extend our thank you to Ruggles, to More Than a Bakery, and to Community Trust Bank for this incredibly generous offer. I think Brian and James would agree with me. As a mayor of a small town, and for James, as a judge of a relatively small county, and for Brian, a mayor of a little bit bigger town than Midway. When somebody in our town, especially a child, is going hungry, chances are we're actually going to know about them, and that's the truth. And so to know that these kids who do struggle, and it happens in Midway, and it happens in Versailles, and it happens all over Woodford County, to help them and to give them one less thing to worry about. School is tough. Being a kid is tough, but going hungry is just awful. And we see these backpack programs that help out, and when you see the amount of children in our communities that need this help, to see this check, to see this help from these great companies, it is an enormous gift to our entire community, and we thank you. Again, on behalf of Judge Kay and Mayor Troggett and the City of Midway, we want to extend a thank you to all of you.
Get everybody here in front of the banner. Can we get in front of the banner, maybe, and we can get over there? Thank you all very, very much. Ladies, come on over on the other side.
On the other side? Okay.
Yeah, that you knew I was gonna say.
I wore tall shoes today,
Okay. All right, Amanda, take a little baby step over to Allison, a little bit more. Perfect. Allison, you're over a little bit more. You're perfect. Awesome. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. We also have. Okay, we have other exciting news tonight. We have a new student member here for her first meeting. If everyone would like to welcome Hannah Hash. Hannah, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. I'm a junior this year, class of 2024. I have been in Woodford County basically my entire life, from elementary school all the way up until high school. I know a lot of students in my grade, and I really do hope that you all can expect to hear kind of monthly reports from me. I send out Google Forms to the student body and to staff, and I actually got a lot of responses for the first one, so it's really good. I'm hoping I'll get a lot of interaction. We're going to see, but yeah, if you'll have any questions for me, 10 out of 10, let me know.
Very good. We're very happy to have you. Welcome. All right. Are there any other proposed amendments to the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Really excited to start this meeting with just notifying everyone that we have had an awesome first 8 days of school. School has started seamlessly, almost like we never left. Thank goodness we did, because we all did need a break. And I believe, and I said this in cabinet the other day, great things don't happen by chance. I think a lot of work was put into this school year this summer through our cabinet members and our administrators and our staff as well. So great things don't happen by chance. It takes a great team for that. And just the way the school has started, buses have been flawless, almost flawless. Food service has been awesome. Just great things going on in the district. With that being said, we have our fall sports that have started. We've got football, soccer, both boys and girls, volleyball. I've had a chance to attend everything except a boys' soccer game so far, and a football game because I didn't go away last Friday. But we're looking for good things out of that this year. Our high school enrollment, Mr. Bell is here with us somewhere here, but our high school enrollment, as of Friday, I think was 1306. And I have been told that that could be the highest enrollment ever possibly get that you can recall in what your 19, 20 years here in the district. So we're seeing good things. I do attribute that, though, to a large group of 8th graders that moved on up. So that's always, because our numbers are down slightly at the middle school. So it kind of offset it. But, yeah, those are just great things. I've always said when we get to the donations portion of our agenda that, well, I want to say that we've had a large donation. Well, tonight, I think you've seen the proof of that. We've seen this community come together to help us feed kids. And that, to me, there's no greater partnership and no stronger district when you have the community involved. So just very, very heartwarming to see that. We have started an initiative. I think it was, Angel and I had this conversation. Mr. Rogers talked about find the helpers. So we know our first responders are the helpers. So when we offer a free lunch to our first responders and they come in and our kids see that, hey, these are good people, they're safe, they're fun, they're not bad folks, it makes them more comfortable and they build relationships. Now our SROs do a great job with that. They're on the playgrounds, they're in the hallways, they're dressed up for almost every dress up day we have. They're great with that, but it's also awesome just to have these other first responders in the building. And it's always good to show our appreciation for everything that they do here in Woodford County. We're a small community, and they go the extra mile. I think Drew Chandler, our emergency management director, was up in southeast Kentucky for the flooding and helped with that for about a week. We've sent materials up. We're getting ready to send some more things up, some furniture that I think that I talked to the superintendent today up there, and they're needing some furniture. So we're just seeing great things out of our first responders. When we can appreciate them, we certainly need to do so. Then it's another level of safety. Bad guys are less likely to show up if they see even a fire truck out in front of the building. There's too much attention. So those are some of the reasons why, but I just think it's a great opportunity to do that. And then I'll close with probably the biggest news this week. I'm going to steal everybody here's thunder, I'll bet. Groundbreaking, Wednesday at 2:30. Should be a pretty big throwdown. We'd love to have everybody come. We've sent out every invitation, and we've got some pretty good confirmations, and just going to be an exciting time. Our band's going to be over playing some fight songs, and hopefully our old Kentucky home, and the cheerleaders are going to be there. And we chose to do it on an early release day, hopefully that we can get staff and students both there. So just an exciting time right now in Woodford County. I think I've taken enough time, so you guys go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Adkins. So Hannah, each month we do a good news report and we try to highlight something exciting happening in the district. I'll let you go last, or you can wait until next month if you want, whatever you would prefer. Ms. Richardson, let you start us off.
Okay. It seems like the first day of school went great. I think everybody was really excited about that. The buzz around the new high school, I have not heard anything negative. No one has come to me with a negative comment. They've been really excited. They're happy that this is happening for the kids. I think one thing that I want to point out, it was a great summer. Everybody's had fun and things, but tonight's meeting really kind of hit home for me over the past 4 years. When we first started the tax vote, the for and the against tax vote, I think the one thing that I really pressed forward on was that at that time, 45% of our student population was on free or reduced lunch. And that's a huge number. I'm fortunate. I've never been hungry. I've never had to experience that. But I come from a family who did grow up hungry. And I never forgot the stories that my father told me. So having More Than a Bakery, Ruggles, who has been a part of our community for years. Our daughters cheered together 18 years ago. To have our community partners come together and provide lunch for our students who might otherwise sit there and not eat a meal one day is a huge testament to what this community is. It makes me emotional, and I'm happy. So I want to thank them. That's very important.
Agreed. It's wonderful to have such an inclusive and giving community.
Absolutely.
Ms. Glass?
Well, I have also heard wonderful, positive comments about the first day of school. Our kids did transitions at our house, and it's been really flawless and really seamless, and everybody seems happy. So kudos to our staff and teachers and administrators, because I know you guys have worked hard this summer, and I can't recall a first day of school that I have not heard, negative comments, or this bus was late, or this drop-off took forever. And I think it's kudos to you guys. I think you guys did a great job, and I just wanted to share that, and hopefully that momentum continues on.
Very good. I would say having our opening day with all of our staff back together in one spot to celebrate the beginning of school was a really exciting and positive, energetic day, and echoing all of the things that you all have shared. We had a wonderful beginning of school, and I think that day set the tone. Our staff was excited to be back with kids. I think the whole community is excited to have some sense of normalcy back in a regular year, starting in the ways that we haven't been able to offer the last couple years. So thank you to all of our staff, all of our teachers and custodians and cafeteria staff for your smiling faces and welcoming our kids back into schools and making it such a positive interaction for them. Ms. McHale?
I would echo everything everybody said about the opening day, and trying not to cry over Ms. Richardson's comments as well. And I echo 2 kids in high school. One is a senior this year, and I am a part of Project Graduation. So I am going to take my good news report each month and take the opportunity to let you know of everything that we're doing for Project Graduation. If you don't know what Project Graduation is, it is basically a party that's given for our graduating seniors the night of graduation. It is all night long. It's at Falling Springs, and basically it is a safe, fun environment to let the kids celebrate together. There's no curfew. They're safe. Again, they're safe. There's nobody out on the road drinking and driving. This is the first place that I've ever seen anything like this happen, and I think that it's a great opportunity for our kids to have one final party together. It is very expensive. So we will be doing lots of fundraising activities, and I'm really looking forward to letting you all know every single month what is happening. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McHale. Ms. Springate?
Well, I really don't have anything to add tonight. I think
That's
I'm going to go
tough.
first next month.
Yes.
But really, welcome, Hannah. It's so exciting to have a student, excited to be back, and really thankful to live in Woodford County. We have a wonderful, wonderful staff, wonderful students, wonderful community. So,
All right, thank you all. Next, we will move on to the instructional and equity update from Mr. Asher.
Thank you. Glad to be once again reporting a monthly report. This on the 8th day of school, as Mr. Atkins had mentioned. Much like everyone else has said, the back to school has been fantastic. These first 8 days, it really starts with relationships and expectations first. And there's a motto that says connections before content. So teachers, staff have done a wonderful job with that. I heard smiles by bus drivers and cafeteria workers and teachers alike mentioned among your comments. So we greatly appreciate that, and that certainly makes for a very positive start of the school year. Before I get into my overall report, I did want to introduce her in her new role, Susan Tracy, as our Director of Student Achievement. Not a very familiar face, of course, being at our middle school and Huntertown Elementary before that, but I want to introduce her as she is, we work very closely together. She has picked up, July 25th was her first day on the job in that, and has picked up and started running with it right away. So you'll occasionally hear from her, much like you did Dr. Jones, but just know that we work closely together. Each year we start off with the big rocks. Those are our foundational elements, and once again, I'm going to be a broken record with this and just say that we are continuing our 3 foundational elements of MTSS, multi-tiered systems of support, PLC, and mental health and wellness. That was calculated in that we wanted to stay with those foundational pieces for 2 main reasons. One, there are next steps in each of those areas that we want to take moving forward. Those come from assessments at the district level, at the school level, self-assessments, I should say, about improvements that we need to make in each of those areas. So we want to keep those as foundational elements. Second thing is that we have a number of new team members, both at the administrative level, the teacher level, and you don't want to just assume that folks know what goes into PLC, what goes into MTSS, and just roll on without proper training, proper experiences in each of those. So we will continue those as our foundational elements. A couple of new projects and initiatives that will build upon those foundations I do want to make mention of, and both of these are sponsored at the state level. The first of which is called the Deeper Learning Project. This was kicked off, I know Ms. Springate, you were there, Ms. Bradley, back in last September, I think it was, with United We Learn at the state level. And ultimately, that it encourages innovations in the classroom and then collaboration with the community in order to make those innovations. So this will involve a team of teachers first and foremost. We've got 10 identified so far, and we're talking all levels, elementary through high. A couple of admin principal representatives, myself, Ms. Tracy, and then eventually folding in community members as well for that collaborative piece. So I'll be updating you as we go. There's still a lot to learn. This is a big, there's many directions you can take with this project. So we will identify more specifically where we are going with that. We ultimately have to have our plan submitted to the state by late October. So as that moves along, I'll continue to update you, but that is called the Deeper Learning Project. Kind of parlay into my equity update with the next one, the Equity Playbook. Again, sponsored at the state level. You probably have seen that title through emails. While it's not the same as the equity work we do, it'll very much complement that. So again, much like Deeper Learning, this will involve a team of teachers and admin from our district. And if I could just read a little bit of the description here. It provides district and school leaders with personalized coaching on evidence and research-based practices, content and resources to address opportunity gaps. So again, obviously from that description complements our equity work that we've been doing, because oftentimes we're able to find discrepancies or issues within our data, but then what do we do about it? So I'm very hopeful that this playbook will give us some of those direction to go. And it also involves a level of teacher coaching on how to address those gaps as well. Continuing with equity, we have our workshop with our new recruits from our schools. As I mentioned, it's all about building capacity and implementing school level teams to truly put our action plan into action this coming year. So next Tuesday, we have a virtual training with Dr. Banks, as I had mentioned, I believe last month, if not the month before. Continuing our work with her and kind of a gradual release model to where she continues to work with us, but we're taking more of that on ourselves. So ultimately, what we want to do with those teams, those school level teams, is put the action plan into action, as I said, and really define what that looks like at the schools. A number of the steps that we've taken over the past couple of years have been district level in terms of the training we've done and several other things, but now more into the schools, so building capacity in that regard. So that concludes my overall report. I did want to make mention of looking ahead to the next 2 months. I want to do CDIP reports from our 2022 CDIP, because before we know it, November actually begins the development of the 23 plan. So I want to do this personally to see how did we do on our 22 plan and give you some data and some reports to go along with that. I think it'd be best to break it up over 2 months. So I'll do that in September and October and then roll into development of our 23 plan. So that concludes my update. Any questions for me?
I don't have any questions, but I would say welcome to Miss Susan Tracy. We're happy to have you in your new capacity and excited to hear from you this year. Does anyone else have any questions or comments?
I have 3 things. Good things. I spent about 30 minutes with a group of first graders at Southside this morning, and talking about the first 2 weeks of school, it's all about procedures. And I found myself kissing my brain and eyes on you when the teacher would say, eyes on me, eyes on you. So I found myself in the middle of all that, and this fly is trying to carry me off right now, I think. But in our MTSS process, I'll tell you, I've never seen one as extensive as what we do here in Woodford County. I can't say enough good things about Miss Amy Oates and Miss Tracy Francis and you guys and our administrators, really. I mean, the data, when we have these monthly meetings, the data is just stockpiled as to what we see. It's unbelievable. And then also, Mr. Larry Blackford reached out to me again today, and he's ready. He's ready to get back into the school, so we're excited for that. So he's going to stop by the middle school. He'll be getting up with Mr. Bell as well. He'll start working with some of our young kids as well. So just exciting things. But
that's something that you maybe could add in, Ryan, is allowing parent volunteers back into the schools and being able to work with classes and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I've talked to Garrett about this just before our back to school meetings, that kind of clean slate in terms of the background check, and folks had to redo those because obviously it was hard to keep track over the past couple of years, but clean slate there to encourage folks to come back in, to volunteer, to get into classrooms, to come eat lunch, opening the doors back for that. So excited for that opportunity.
So all parents need to renew their background check regardless of whether they had it at the end of the year last year?
Yep, I'm getting a nod back there. I wanted to double check myself. Anything to say?
There were a handful of parents that did some things at the end of last year that would not have to. But by and large, the vast majority of parents would need to start the background check process over this year.
Okay, I know we had a kindergarten field trip that at the end of the year, everyone was excited to be able to volunteer to go on. So a lot of background checks happened that last couple of weeks, so.
And as you guys see, too, we're approving the new volunteer handbook,
Sure,
everything.
yes.
We've kind of updated that. We did that in preparation for our volunteers this year.
And I did have a question from a first responder that just wanted to know if they were going to have their background check to be able to come and have lunch.
I think
Garrett's coming up, I think.
Garrett,
I didn't know the answer to that question. I
Garrett's
would assume if they're a
discussed that
first
already,
responder,
so.
they wouldn't have to, but
So, no, they would be considered visitors. And So
Okay.
when we have visitors to the building, we have, parents in for meetings, and parents sometimes come and eat lunch with their child, and so those are just considered visitors. No, they would not need to do a background check. They would need to follow our visitor process. They're gonna have to present an ID, and they'll be checked in like anyone else that comes into the building.
All right, any other questions or comments?
One thing I did forget during Good News, Mr. Asher should get like the Bravery Award for the year. He was out the first couple days of school, out in the circle, greeting people. And if you haven't done high school drop-off, half of the cars, the drivers switch when they get out because they're permitted drivers, pulling in that circle, weaving through. So well done. Nerves of steel there.
Thank you, Mr. Asher.
They weren't going too fast.
They weren't, no.
You could dodge or evade.
Yes.
All right, next item that we will go through is our treasurer's report and July financial report. Mr. Smith?
Good evening. All right, so I'm going to just run through the balance sheet once again, as I normally do, and just give you the fund balances. The general fund balance, this is as of 7/31, 2022. The general fund balance is $9,798,317.10. The Fund 2 special revenue has a balance of $1.226 million. Fund 21, which is our district activity fund, has a fund balance of $374,874. Fund 25, which is a school activity fund, has $377,963 in it. The capital outlay fund has $1.282971 million in it. The building fund has $1.451760 in it. The construction fund has $65,648 in it. As you know, we recently sold $75 million worth of bonds. Those numbers will substantially change in the August balance sheet number. Fund 400 has a balance of $34.99. Food service fund has $1.398 million $0.95 in it. And then the daycare operations has $496,338.40. So those are your fund balances. I also provided 2 reports for your ESSER dollars. So ESSER 2, which is the 554G report, we have approximately $272,465 remaining in that grant. And in the ESSER 3, 473G, we have approximately $1.885875.92. So $1.88 million remaining in ESSER 3. What questions do you have for me?
All right, does anyone have any questions from Mr. Smith?
Regarding the food service fund balance, I think we talked last month about maybe potentially using some of those funds for some of our classroom facilities in the new high school from
For the culinary class.
culinary, yes, that's the word I was looking for.
Possibly. We'll have to investigate the restrictions. Obviously, with that fund, there are some restrictions as to what we can utilize those dollars for. They will primarily have to stay within the food service area. However, culinary may fall within that. I'll have to do some research on that and find out for sure. I think speaking with Courtney Quire about that, she has some plans of some things that she needs for her normal day-to-day food service operations. She also has some concerns with the year moving forward with the costs, the inflationary issues with cost pressures, that she may need some of that fund balance to continue to operate. So I think we'll have to be patient and just observe that as we go forward. So,
But it can certainly be used for the cafeteria equipment.
Absolutely, for cafeteria equipment, yes.
Speaking of inflation on food costs, how is supply chain moving for the new year so far?
From her last update to the cabinet, I think she's having not as many problems as she may have anticipated with supply chain, so that was encouraging. Having said that, I do think there are still some issues with that. And then from the inflationary standpoint, the last consumer price index I looked at, food is about 8.5% over what it was a year ago. So
It's good to hear that the supply is kind of evening up. That was a huge issue for us.
Agreed.
In the past 2 years, so that's good news. Any other questions or comments?
I do have a couple questions. One, you may not know the answer to, but I know a few years ago, maybe even before the pandemic, there was a food program that a lot of Kentucky schools were signing up for, where every student in the district was eligible for free lunches. I don't know if that's something that we might look into or we might be eligible to do in Woodford County, but I think that when you look at the donation tonight and the community partnerships tonight, that would definitely be something I think worth looking into more long term, and would affect probably all of our students in a positive way and our families.
Absolutely. I've discussed that with Ms. Quire previously since I've been here, and I think we don't have enough population to qualify.
I just asked this question. I had a parent reach out and ask this, and I asked Ms. Quire, those numbers are based on the number of students that qualify for SNAP and Medicaid, and you have to reach a certain threshold for the district to be completely covered. Anderson County did reach that threshold, so all of their school breakfasts and lunches are covered, but we did not. It's the CEP
program, I think.
And it's pulled directly from Medicaid and SNAP.
Gotcha.
Records.
And in that program previously, they had allowed schools to enroll. So if the whole district didn't qualify, you could qualify on a school-by-school basis. Is that still available?
I believe so. If a school qualifies, I think you can do individual schools if they qualify.
And I'm sure there are some pros and cons, but that might be something to kind of look into too. We may have some schools that actually do qualify, and some other schools that are kind of bringing up the average so that the whole district doesn't qualify. So
yeah, I didn't ask that specifically. I just was asking because I had a parent ask about the whole district. They were hopeful that we would qualify and wondered if it was maybe something that we hadn't applied for. So we can ask Ms. Quire that and get that information for sure.
Just something to think about.
Sure, thank you.
And then the second thing I had was that I went back and reviewed the July meeting, and I saw Ms. Bradley specifically ask you, Mr. Smith, about after we paid off our debt, where does that leave our contingency? Mm-hmm. And what I heard you say was that after we defease $2.4 million from the general fund, we will be reimbursed that. So I'm assuming that we'll be reimbursed from money that we're borrowing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and that has not been done and reflected on these July financials yet. So that will occur in the August financials. I've not made those journal entries yet, but yes, the reimbursement back to the general fund from the construction fund will occur out of the borrowings from the bond sale.
Okay.
And that covers things like the architect's fees and
it was really close to $2 million that the general fund has paid for during the course of this high school project. that would be reimbursed back to the general fund.
And do you know how much it'll cost to borrow that money to pay us back?
How much it'll cost to borrow for the bond issue?
Well, the 2.4 million to pay us back that? Okay. So, but there are some fees or whatever associated, and that'll be part of the bond sale. And so that,
Hold on
that
just
really
a second.
was.
I think he was going to answer you.
Clarify that. I'm not sure I'm following what you're asking, so.
Well, if we borrow money to reimburse ourselves, like if I go to the bank and I borrow money to reimburse myself, usually it's not at a 0% rate, and our bond sale was not a 0% rate. So I'm assuming there are some fees associated with borrowing $2.4 million to pay ourselves back.
So I agree with all that. However, we did not borrow it in a separate transaction. We sold $75 million worth of bonds for the entire project, and I'm just reimbursing the general fund with those dollars, the $2 million that we spent. I have not accrued any interest towards the $2 million that we have taken out of the general fund over the course of 3 or 4 years, however long this project has been going, if that's what you're asking.
However, Ms. Mearsick says that the $75 million over the lifetime of the project should accrue somewhere in the neighborhood of $2.4 million back to the district as well.
Yes.
Before as we pay it out. As things are done and we pay it out, that monies will accrue. She's
Just to
in the
clarify,
ballpark of $2.4 million.
I think what Ms. Springate's asking is, will there be a cost in making that general fund whole from the bond sale premiums?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're going to pay interest on the total bond issuance, and a portion of that bond issuance went back to paying the general fund back. So if that's what I'm understanding you ask.
Yeah, it's not a wash, so there are some fees and such associated with that.
There were fees associated with the overall bond sale, not with making the general fund whole, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we sold bonds. There was a cost to selling bonds. A portion of those bonds go back to the general fund to make it whole. So therefore, there would be some costs associated with that.
And interest and that kind of thing over the 30-year or 30-plus year, however long it takes to pay it back. And then you already answered the question about it's not reflected on this report. But I did wonder, if you look from the June contingency balance to this contingency balance, it looks like it's down by about 1.7 million. Is there, can you explain that?
What you're looking, I'm not sure, what are you looking at, the AFR?
No, I'm looking actually at just page 9, just the total contingency is 5.5, and in June it was $1.7 million higher.
I think that's the budgetary number.
What's that mean?
That's the budget that was set in the tentative budget in May. There shouldn't have been any transactions that really affected that contingency number from the actual standpoint. The actual contingency as of June 30th was going to be that 9.7. So in theory, your ending balance every year is your contingency, right? That is your unspent dollars from the previous year. So if you're always budgeting equally, the contingency would be the ending balance, so that would be the 9.7. But you have to create the next year's budget, so that number does not always equal the same. So I think you're looking at the budgetary. We'd had conversation previously about the 5.5 million in the budget, and I think that's taking into account the $4 million payment that you're reducing this $9.5 million contingency by to defease the bonds.
So it's taking the defeasance into account?
Yes.
Okay, and then from the June report, the Munis report, it was $1.7 million more, but that's just, it just showed that. It didn't really change. It's just the 5.5?
It's looking at budgetary numbers, just planning numbers versus actual statement balances, I think is what he's saying.
So the Munis report that's showing we have 5.545 million in contingency is the balance
That's
or just
that's the FY23 budgetary number for contingency. I'm without looking at anything in front of me, I'm almost positive that's what you're looking at.
Okay, so it's just what you're listing as contingency, but the $1.7 million that it went down from June till now, it didn't really go down. There weren't really $1.7 million in costs. It just was reflected differently in June and July.
June actuals versus July projections.
Yeah, the contingency would not have changed until we actually spent the money to defease the bonds in August.
Okay, and that's not reflected in here.
Not in that, that's a July financial statement, so.
Okay, and then the other thing is, I did wonder if we could get a copy of the unaudited annual financial report, and, I mean, I don't know if anybody else wants it, but.
Sure.
Okay,
absolutely.
thank you. And then the last thing I had was, I just wondered if we are going to, post information about the different tax rate options, if that would be something that'll be shared with the public and posted, or shared with the board, or how that would work
I
this year.
believe I shared what we had with, that we
I sent it
received
to all the
from-
board members as well.
From KDE, so those.
It's
I sent
also
what I
been
got from
posted in the
KDE to all
newspaper.
board
It was in the newspaper?
Yes.
Okay, I just wondered, because I know that process has changed this year, and I just wanted to make sure that that information was out to the public,
So-
and that we have all that.
The process didn't necessarily change. The recommendation from KDE changed, but the statute didn't change to reflect that. And so in scheduling meetings, I thought it was the most transparent thing to just go ahead and have the tax hearing the same way that we always have with
I agree.
advertising in the newspaper, and doing that in a public meeting rather than following. It concerned me and Mr. Chenoweth that the guidance changed, but the statute didn't change. It seems like that was removing a level of transparency from the public that didn't have a reason to do that.
Right, and we didn't necessarily have to do that. You can always go above and beyond and make sure that you're still doing that hearing
Sure,
and still
it was
being
just the
transparent and
recommendation.
sharing the information, so.
Yeah, it was just
yeah.
the recommendation from KDE that was no longer necessary, but I think you try and be as open with your public as possible and continue to do things in the way that they have expected and seen for the last 3 decades, or however long it's been since that statute changed.
I just wanted to make sure that would be posted maybe on our website and in the paper so that everybody could
That
kind of
actually
get that
ran the
information.
first time in the paper last Thursday. It will run the second time this coming Thursday, and the tax hearing will be on the 1st.
On September
September
1st.
1st, 5:30 at the central office boardroom.
Perfect. I just want to make sure that information gets out there, so.
All right,
Thank
any
you.
other questions? Thank you, Mr. Smith. Is there a
Thank you.
motion to approve the July financial report?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. McHale. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second by Ms. Glass. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes 5-0. The next item on the agenda is the opportunity for audience or public comment. And we have one submitted by email to Ms. Cooper.
Okay, this is from Cynthia Vance. I'm pleased to share that our board approved many of our project alternates for our new high school tonight, including a track and turf field. This social media quote, which was accompanied by a rendering of the new track and practice field, is from board chair Danny Bradley following the July 18th meeting. Having never heard nor read anything about the board's consideration of a track and practice field, I was surprised and a bit shocked to see this news on social media. It spurred me to watch the July 18th meeting, where I saw the board approve a track and practice field without ever discussing a cost associated with the project. I heard CFO Shane Smith say all approved alternates, including the track and practice field, had been lumped together in line item 19 of the BG1 for a total cost of $5.1 million. Still feeling the need for more information, July 30th, I submitted an open records request for specific information pertaining to the bid and costs associated with the outdoor athletic facilities. After getting no response, I followed up 5 days later, Friday, August 5th, with an email to Mrs. Cooper to ensure my request had been received and when I could expect a response. She responded as follows, quote, Ms. Vance, we are in receipt of your email and it has been forwarded to the appropriate parties. As this has been sent to outside parties, I do not have an exact timeline on your receipt of the requested items, end quote. I found this response perplexing. Why would my request be sent to a third party? Why couldn't the district readily access and provide the requested information? On Monday, August 8th, Superintendent Adkins responded to my request stating, quote, there are no documents that exist to satisfy any of these requests. This project is still in the idea phase and the design concept has not yet been finished, end quote. After thoroughly researching this response is exactly what I expected, although I'm not sure why it took a third party and 5 full business days to get this answer. Contrary to Mrs. Bradley's rhetoric and Mr. Smith's remarks at last month's meeting, the track and practice field are not part of the high school project and are not on the list of possible alternates. The projected $4.5 million track and practice field is a separate project that must go through the bidding process as required by state law. In light of the discovery made through my open records request, it is not surprising to see BG1 revisions on tonight's agenda. Truth and transparency continue to be a struggle for this board. Taxpaying citizens should not have to work this hard to uncover the truth. Thank you, Cynthia Vance.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey. We will move on to the consent agenda. Mr. Atkins, you want to take us through that?
Our donation request, we had, again, the biggest thing we saw tonight, we saw our community come forth and really do great things for our students. So with that being said, that's the bulk of our donations. We look at our approved fundraisers, nothing really out of the ordinary there. It's our typical fundraisers, book fairs, I saw a car wash, those types of things, just things that we typically do. Approved travel request. Really the only one that stuck out there was the, I guess, was it the senior trip, Angel? They had to change because it fell during a holiday week or something, so we ended up changing that. They asked to change that, so that's what we're asking tonight, to be able to change that as well. Approve our grants. That's our grants. Logan Culbertson over at Safe Harbor is applied for a grant to, he's working on some things in his restrooms with vaping and those types of things, so that's kind of the grants he's looking at. Approved contracts. We have one for a speech therapy group. We are down a speech therapist and have had no applications for that, so for us to continue to service our students, that's what we will do there upon board approval. Approve the reading of the board member expense reimbursement. We had already approved everyone, and for some reason the board members got left out of that. Instead of now having to keep up with receipts, it's just a daily rate, and we used what other districts are using for that. So it's just a daily rate instead of everybody having to track receipts, those types of things. Our handbooks, as I said earlier, for our volunteers, that's in preparation of our volunteers coming back into schools, our ETC parent employee handbooks. Ms. Johnson, is there anything you want to touch on with that, or any questions for Ms. Johnson on that?
I don't think so.
And then that gets us to the approved declaration of surplus property. I know we have some Chromebooks, we have some furniture from our special ed department, some older furniture. And I think one of the things that were surplus to Angel's already grabbed and put it in her office. So she wanted to make sure that she got it in her office. And it looks really nice in there, Angel, by the way. We have some textbooks. I think Ms. Bradley may have reached out to someone up in Eastern Kentucky as well. Is there a possibility of textbooks?
When I saw that one on there and pending board approval, I reached out to Letcher County because they had posted that they could use textbooks for their middle school, and they haven't yet told me if they could use them, but hopefully they can, and we can, I'll be happy to take those to them if they are approved as surplus tonight.
Would that be the same possibility for any of the furniture? Is it in a condition that could be?
I reached out to a group today, and Knott County had asked last week, and Mr. Reynolds at Southside had he had 50 student desks, that elementary size. And then Mr. Albert at Simmons had 60 chairs, round tables, student tables. So I reached out to another county, and she said they would love to have them.
Great.
So we'll have to get those surplus, and then I'll get, if we can, we have a trailer, we may have to borrow a trailer or something, but we'll get those to her. And I asked her when they plan on starting school. They don't even have a date yet. They can't even talk about a date yet. She said maybe the end of the week they would get close to a date when they can start school. I said, well, we're going to get them to you before you start school. So, yeah, that's a good question, Ms. McHale.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Glass. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. McHale. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes 5-0. Moving on to the regular agenda. Is there a motion to accept notification of personnel matters?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Glass. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Or, I'm sorry, second by Ms. McHale. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes 5-0. Is there a motion to accept notification of payment of bills?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. McHale. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Glass. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes 5-0. Item C is to approve the meeting minutes of the July 18th, 2022, 5 p.m. and 6 p.m. board meetings. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Glass. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. McHale. Is there any discussion?
Sorry, I forgot my button. I'm going to not vote on this.
Sure.
I wasn't present, and I just...
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So the motion passes 4-0 with Ms. Springate abstaining. Item D, do you want to have Mr. Wells present that? Item D is creation of a position.
Mhm. Yes, we are requesting that the board.
Hang on just a sec. I'm not sure your mic's. Try again.
We good now?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're on.
So we are requesting that the board create a position, a coordinator of alternative programs, that would essentially oversee Safe Harbor, and then a few other items or a few other things such as we have a school within a school at both the high school and the middle school. Having a person to be able to kind of coordinate and oversee both of those programs. Right now, they're standalone programs in each school, but being able to have a person to kind of work with both of those, looking at adding the home hospital program that we already have, moving that under that position, and then also potentially working more closely with our virtual programs, our virtual academy.
So is there a motion to approve the creation of the position?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Glass. I'll second that. On this, just reading over it, do you envision that this position could maybe look at CTE avenues in things that we could bring into the schools? I know a lot of times when we go to conferences and hear about kind of how other schools are exploring avenues within their community, it would be great to have someone designated to say, hey, could you check out what so-and-so county is doing? Do you think that this would be a good fit for that position, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I think having this type of position, whether it be what you just talked about or maybe some other initiative or some other need that might fall under that umbrella, I think would be appropriate. But specifically to answer your question about that, I think that could
And
potentially be.
we actually had discussed
Yeah.
that in part of the job description as well.
Could
I think that'd
potentially
be
a
great.
piece.
I think
Yeah.
there's some really neat ideas on how to reach out and not necessarily have huge designation of like pathway monies and things like that. But if you have a handful of kids that have an interest in one thing that is unique to Woodford County, it'd be great to have someone that could explore that and look at how other districts have done that and been successful. We have a lot of unique opportunities in Woodford County. I'd love to see that grow. Any other questions or comments?
I do have a question. I hate to be the one that always asks, but do you have any kind of cost estimate, any kind of idea?
Again, that's going to depend on rank, salary, and experience of the individual, so it's difficult to say.
Would it be more or less than 50,000?
It could be more. It could be as little as 2,000. And again, it's just going to depend
Just
on.
$2,000 to hire a person to do all this?
It's going to depend on the person that goes into that position. Yes,
Is it a full-time position?
it is.
Okay. I guess maybe, is it possible to get a list of the district positions that we have approved over the last year with a cost column on it? just so we could kind of have an idea, and then we could just leave this one blank until we fill it, and then maybe fill that in. I just kind of want to keep track of, I know we've added a lot of positions, and there's been, a lot of cost, and that's cost that, staffing costs, the biggest piece of your budget pie. And so I just kind of want to keep an eye on that. And then also just want to make sure that, when we add the positions, such as the 2 counseling positions, that those are positions that we can pay for next year and the year after and the year after, that kind of thing. So I would appreciate a list.
I would say, Garrett, you wouldn't have to leave that blank for this position. You could put the salary classification for the position, right? How it's going to fall based on years of experience, rank, certification, the way it would be in the job listing.
Sure.
Okay.
And I would just say it would be interesting to see how many positions we've approved, but I think it could be misleading to say that 100% of those positions would be incremental charges to the budget or expense for the district. There's lots of position moves, so I think you have to look at it from a holistic view. Certainly interesting to see how many new positions we've created. I think that shows flexibility and the nimbleness of the district, but I don't want the community to think that 100% of that would be incremental cost to the district, because I don't think you could say that for sure just based on that list.
It feels like it would be an incremental increase, because if you have a teacher that moves up to a counseling position, then you're still going to have to hire for the teacher. I guess there would be some, if you got a teacher with less experience, it would be perhaps a little bit less. So I do see that. But we're not cutting. I guess it would be nice to see a list of any positions that we've cut too, and cost savings associated with that, just in conjunction, so you'd have a full picture. But yeah.
But it's also open positions and how many people you had on staff and what are you hiring for. I think it's a big discussion. I don't think it's an invaluable, or I don't think it's an unvaluable discussion. I think it's a good big discussion, but I think it's just more than how many positions have we added.
Well, and then maybe you could add something of the total staff cost and maybe break it down for the past 5 years, and that might help give kind of context too. So that might be a good thing to have in conjunction with.
Sorry, I didn't mean to create a project for you.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that sounds really nice.
I think you're
Well,
creating
and
a
I'm thinking
project
back
for
about
Shane is what you're doing.
2 years ago when we hired 18 additional teachers to get through the first year of the pandemic, and that would really skew our
Well, we could do a 5 year. Yeah, look at 5 years, so we know that could be skewed there. And of course, you guys could always explain that. But I do think it's a good idea to keep a handle on the staffing costs, since that is, our biggest piece of the salary budget of our entire budget for our entire district. We want to keep in mind. And then also you want to, when you create a position, be able to sustain it. You don't want to just do that for kind of 1 year. You want to have a plan. Absolutely. So that would just be interesting. I would appreciate that information.
Yep.
All right, any other comments or questions?
Some of the things that we see with folks that leave us, it's very easy for them to go to Fayette or Scott or anywhere, and it's not just about the money. We have one person leave us, and basically they're doing federal programs. And here in Woodford County, they did federal programs, they did instruction. I could go on and on with everything they did. You can go to another district and specialize and not have to work on Saturdays and Sundays and all night and still make more money. So when I look at Garrett, for example, probably one of the best people we have in this district. But Garrett is assistant superintendent, DPP, Safe Schools director. What am I leaving off, Garrett? Yeah, there's a bunch of things. So personnel director. So when we look at, we're trying to lighten the load at times, because it is easier to keep folks. The money may not be the biggest deal, but sometimes you can walk out with a peace of mind and do one job and focus on that and be really good at that, instead of having to scrap all day to do 7 or 8 jobs.
All right, thank you, Mr. Adkins. Any other discussion? All right, thank you, Mr. Wells. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion passes 5-0. Item E is to approve the contracts for the new high school project. Mr. Smith, are you on the hook for this one? Nobody else jumped up, did they?
So these are basically the contracts for the bid packages. I'm on, okay. So the contracts for the bid packages for the high school. We just listed all those packages out there. Those contracts do include the alternates that were approved by the board. So that's basically what these contracts are. So.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the contracts for the new high school project?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Richardson. I will second that. Is there any further discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion passes 5-0. Item F is special inspections for the new high school project.
I believe there are 3 contracts attached. These are for the air and balance inspections, some other inspections that have to be performed during the construction process. So that's what these contracts, Clay or Sarah may want to add to those what those contracts are for.
One is commissioning, which is energy commissioning that's required by code. Another one is the special inspections, and those are inspections on things like steel welds and concrete strength, and those are also required by code. And the other one is test and balance, and that's the company that comes in to make sure all the diffusers are returning and supplying the proper amount of air to all the proper locations.
All right. Sorry, go ahead. Were you?
No, that's it. That's what those are.
All right. Is there a motion to approve item F, special inspections for the new high school project?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. McHale. I will second that. Is there any further discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion passes 5-0. Item G is the BG4 for the high school bleacher structural repair. And it looks like this is just kind of taking things to an end on that project.
That's correct. The BG4 closes out the contract for the construction vendor. So that project is essentially finished other than the formalities of closing out all the BGs for KDE. There will also be a BG5 that will close out the project completely that I'll have to bring back to you at some point in the future. But the BG4 does take care of the construction for the emergency repairs at the high school.
All right. Is there a motion to approve item G, the BG4 for the high school bleacher structural repair?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Glass. I will second. Is there any discussion?
Just wondering, what was the final cost again on that?
Came in under.
I know.
I think it was under the projected cost.
So is that typically in the BG4, or would that be in the BG5, or how?
The BG5 will reflect the total cost of the project. Okay. The BG4, I believe, Hare Construction, that BG4 is just for their portion of which was the most of the project, but that's just what we paid them for the construction costs.
Now, with the BG4, we had to hold back. We had a contingency, just like we do everywhere else. So that will come back to the district as
very good.
Back into
Is there
general fund,
any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes 5-0. Item H is to revise the BG1 new high school project.
That's correct. So with the athletic track and practice field project, we consulted with KDE and felt like the best way to move forward with that project was create a separate BG1. We reallocated some of the general fund bonding that we had in the initial project. I think there was along the lines of $9 million of general fund bonding that we did in that project. After working with Ross Tarrant and Clay with Trace Creek and got a project cost last week, with the project, we came up with an estimate of approximately $4.5 million. So we reallocated $4.5 million, or removed $4.5 million from the high school project and reallocated it to the new BG1, which will be the next agenda item for the track and athletic field.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the revised high school BG1 project?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Glass, and I will second that. So I think for our public to have an understanding on this, the BG1 is a fluid document that is going to change over the course of the project as we identify needs and as we see different costs come in at places like the bleachers coming in under budget. I'm hopeful that every bit of it comes in under budget. But the BG1 is constantly revised to allocate the resources, and that is all done in compliance with the Kentucky Department of Education's requirements for that. Now, this project was a little bit unique because it fell during a time that the statute changed regarding athletic buildings and other buildings with House Bill 567. So we thought for a bit that the BG1 could have the track and practice field, but they said that they felt like it was cleanest to have it on a separate item. So this is something that is changing as it evolves and is a normal part and procedure of a construction project in Kentucky.
That's correct. It's a very fluid document. In all construction projects, it is revised very frequently because of changes in scope, etc. No different here. The track and practice field was not part of the original plan with the high school when we put that project out for bid. And due to the favorable bond issue that we got, the favorable rates, we were able to have a few more dollars available to be able to utilize for the project. And so that's when at the last board meeting, we had Ross Trott create the conceptual design of the athletic field. And so that was what was available at the previous board meeting. There was no other costs or schematics associated other than basically a nice drawing of the overall view of the track. And so in the last 2 weeks, we've been able to get a cost estimate put together for what we believe that project will cost in addition to the high school project.
And the schematics and the description given by our architect and by our construction manager is what the board voted on approving at our last meeting to add the track and practice field. And that now has extended to include a restrooms and concession area, as well as I think a fence around the property. And I know that Mr. Adkins had shared that there was a meeting with our athletic director and
I wasn't at that meeting, but Clay, I know that Ross Tarn had folks there, and Clay, someone from Trace Creek was there.
And then
because there was notes taken during that time frame. Yeah,
I know that some of our athletics representatives were there, as well as Walker Terhune, to kind of share with Ross Tarrant and Trace Creek what they felt like Woodford County would benefit specifically from. So that's all been part of this process as well.
And, as long as I've been in Woodford County, there's always been discussion of a multi-purpose field and a track. That's always been there. We didn't, I guess, add it to the alternates for fear of, we just thought it was out of the realm of possibility. And again, with favorable bids and favorable bond sale, it brought it right back in the picture. So.
It's definitely something to celebrate.
Yeah.
Well, I would say I think it's important to be honest. And honestly, I think we've always known, and when you go back and review board meetings, it was always clear that the track and practice field had to be done on a separate BG1, and that had to be done with general fund money, couldn't be done with, just the regular, restricted funds kind of thing. So I think it's important that, when we make mistakes, because clearly we're doing 2 new BG1s tonight because we mistakenly put them together in one. And I think that it's important to just kind of acknowledge that. And again, I guess back to the public comment earlier, has there been a bid or will there be a bid, or are we just guessing again? How's that work?
We are not guessing. We are going to put that out for bid. It's been estimated for the costs.
This is the same procedure we followed for the high school.
But it's just
we
one
approved
BG1, right?
the estimate. and the sale of bonds up to X amount. And this is the same process that
And
we're-
again, last month, we did one BG1 that rolled them both together. So what I'm saying is that was clearly incorrect, and we're pulling them apart tonight, doing a track with just general fund is what you said.
No, I would, that is not clearly incorrect. We reached out to KDE and spoke to the construction folks there. We could have absolutely done this project on one BG1, but we chose to separate it so that we could make it clean and put it out there in a separate project so we didn't have to backtrack on any of the original bid documents that we put out for the original scope of the project. This is just an adding on to the scope of that with a separate BG1, and because we were already doing general fund bonding, we had general fund dollars available to be able to put that on the BG1 and allocate for this project. So I disagree fundamentally that it was a mistake and that we could not have done it that way had we chosen to proceed based on the conversations that myself, Michael Hughes with Ross Torrent had with Gary Least at KDE and Greg Dunbar. So I do not agree with that premise.
Okay, well, back at a board meeting, I believe it was January, we were told that it had to be a separate BG1 and it had to be with general fund. So maybe there's some confusion there. So we don't have to do this tonight.
There's a statutory change since then.
We don't have to do this tonight, or we do? It's okay to leave it as one BG1?
We've decided that it's best to bring it out and put it on a separate BG1.
Okay, but we could do the
But
other
that is
way.
correct due to
Okay.
the statutory change.
House
that
Bill
it-
678.
It does not have to, the restricted dollars.
567, it's three numbers
No,
in a row.
I may have
I think it's
5, 6,
678.
7,
I
3,
think I
4,
said the
5,
wrong
1,
number.
2, 3,
678,
and
yeah.
5,
they
6,
all went
7,
in
6,
succession,
7,
I know
8.
that.
Yeah, it's 678, I think.
Sorry,
House Bill 678. Okay, well, thank you for
misspoke.
clarifying that.
All right. Is there any further comment? All those in favor of approving the item, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
The motion passes 4-1. Item I follows along with that, which is the BG1 for the new high school practice field and track project. Anything that you want to add, Mr. Smith or Sarah or Clay, on this item?
The only thing I would add is that we, after getting the design for the concessions and the restrooms and the things that the track and the athletic folks had requested during the meetings, and we got a good cost estimate put together, that we think it'll be about $4.5 million to be able to do that project and get the things that we needed for the restrooms, concessions, and the facilities. So,
Which is absolutely needed, that's for sure. All right, is there a motion to approve item I?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. McHale. I will second that. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
The motion passes 4-1. All right, that brings us to the end of the regular agenda, and we will move on to discussion items. Item A is the current high school facilities report. I think this is one, I'm not sure if it was Ms. Springate or Ms. McHale that requested that we add this, and I don't think anything has substantially changed from the K-Fix report.
Nothing has changed with the K-Fix report. I have discussed with Ross Torrent about coming in and doing a new K-Fix, just to give us a more up-to-date idea as to what we'll need to do with our district facility plan as we move forward with that. So,
And I assume these costs are gonna change just based on inflation. When was this?
It is gonna change fundamentally. I think some of the costs weren't quite correctly captured in the age of the building on the K-Fix previously, but I think.
are you talking about the cost for the K-Fix process?
No,
or-
she's talking about
Okay.
The actual
unmet need for the
okay,
district in
okay.
reviewing it.
Yeah, I was misunderstanding.
And I think that falls under your discretion to order that within
Yeah.
that price range. All right, is there any further comment or any discussion?
I do have one other, I'm sorry.
Sure, no.
When we look at the capacities of the schools in number 1, 2, and 3 here, there are several new communities that are going up in Woodford County, large communities.
Mm-hmm.
How are we going to, and I think we do need to probably pretty quickly look at what that's going to do estimated to some of the enrollment here. I think there's some concern about the community going in on Versailles Road across from Paddock, in particular with the strain on Huntertown. So I don't know if that was a question or a comment.
You know, so that brings up another point too, on something that we had discussed maybe in my first year, is in the past, I don't believe Woodford County has assigned a school to a specific neighborhood prior to it being built. When I asked Mr. Hawkins about this with the Legends, it's just kind of if it's in that district, it wasn't evaluated specific to enrollment, but I think you may be right. With the size of the neighborhood that's proposed, it might be a good thing for us to take a look at the districting on that and be as proactive in planning, especially for the elementary school impact, as we can. You know, I think going into home ownership for people, if they know what school is expected, it's always the best case scenario rather than changing after they've already committed to buy a home.
And that is something that we did under Mr. Hawkins, and so somebody may just want to go back and review that plan, but it has been assigned.
No, I mean, it has been assigned, but it's not consistently reevaluated after P&Z makes a change to zoning or things like that.
Yeah, it was assigned specifically because of the numbers, and they really haven't changed much at Southside or Huntertown, in Northside and Simmons. And then we did some things to kind of increase enrollment at Simmons, and it was during that time frame that, so people kind of have an idea before they buy the home, like you said, what district this will be in. So that has been done, but certainly is something that could be looked at again. I think it's always good to be as transparent as possible and, you know, provide the information.
Of course. All right, item B is a need for a date change for the October board meeting. So if you can look at your planners. I'm old school.
I don't have my phone.
Oh man, that's like not having an arm.
Or a paper planner, I know.
Currently, the October board meeting is scheduled for the 24th, but 2 of us have conflicts with that date. Is everyone available to move it to October 17th, 1 week in advance?
And that's a Monday.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's scheduled for Monday, October 24th. We'd be moving it to Monday, October 17th.
Because it's Monday today.
Yeah, all day long.
All day.
Is that
Fine with me.
all right?
That's fine with me.
Then, Angel, if you could update the calendar on that, that would be fantastic. Thank you all for your ability to change that. That moves us to the need for an executive session, which I believe we have tonight. So I'll make a motion to go into executive session pursuant to KRS 61.810(1)(c) to discuss pending litigation. And there will be no board action after the executive session, so you are all welcome to stay, but won't miss anything if you don't.
Sorry, can I ask a quick question?
Hold on, can we get to, I made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. McHale. Now, discussion?
We didn't do a couple of items on the regular agenda, and I didn't know if that was something we needed to do. They were written-only reports. One is energy management, and then, of course, it's just written, we don't vote. And the next is the superintendent FY23 salary memorialization, which is written only. And I wasn't sure if that's something we needed to discuss or vote on, or why it was here. I went back and looked at the contract, and I wasn't super sure.
I think it's written only. We don't typically do those. Is that correct, Angel? Yeah.
It's just an unusual item, so I don't know if that's something we need to discuss. I'm not sure what it even really means.
It's recommended. Thank you.
it is recommended that whenever there's an automatic provision or a calculated provision in a superintendent's contract for a raise, that ought to go in front of the board members' eyes, that it be part of an agenda, but it doesn't require action because it's already in the contract, so it just gets reported as a written item, so that I haven't seen it personally happen, but what you don't want to have happen is for like payroll office to just be getting marching orders from the superintendent of, hey, I got a raise, and there's nobody watching that. So it ought to always happen that way in every school district, every year if there's any type of automatic raise, because the original contract for a superintendent has a base salary figure, but if there's any raises built into that ought to be reported to the board each year of, here's the math that has been done, so board members can look at it and say, yes, I agree, that's how the math is supposed to work in the contract. But it's not voting to grant a raise. There's no action needed. It's just a report to the board. This is the math that's been done to determine this year's salary.
Okay, when I looked at the contract, I wasn't super sure because parts of it seemed like it would be automatic, and other parts it seemed like we had to almost vote on that or amend the contract or do something. It was vague, and there were a couple different places where I couldn't really tell. So
if the board as a result of performance evaluation determined to grant a raise, that would require action. There would be some other circumstances where the board would be granting a raise over and above the automatics that are built in. I think this is a matter that the superintendent asked me to look at a few months ago to ask, is this the right calculation? I don't even remember that. It's been several months since I was asked about that.
But there have been no changes to the contract. This is an automatic reoccurrence of the original contract that we entered into with Mr. Adkins.
That's my understanding of how that came about, and say it really ought to be reported that way in every district, every June or July or August of, here's the way the automatic adjustments are reflected in the contract.
So the contract basically says it's $190,000 plus benefits, and then this increase.
No, I don't think that's right. That includes benefits.
That's, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were doing like cell phone bill or health insurance, or not health insurance,
it's
life
total
insurance. Okay,
No,
so
total
compensation.
I pay all that.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought we were reimbursing for cell phone. I saw that on the expense report monthly, so I might be looking at that wrong. But anyway, so it's the $190,000 salary and no benefits, you say, and then we're looking at increasing it to what, or what is the increase, or how's that, an annual increase, or is it, what's it due to, I guess is my question.
I don't know. I wasn't asked to look at that in preparation for tonight's meeting after the agenda was published, so I don't know.
Based on the district-wide raise that everyone, the 2%.
So it's just the 2% raise that everyone in the
Yeah, it's
district
just-
got,
and
and
if
so it's
there
adding
is-
it to the superintendents and making sure that everyone knows that we're doing that. That's all it is. Okay. Okay, well, I just wanted to make sure because I've never seen that on an agenda before. So it's not a special raise, it's not a new raise, it's the 2%, and anybody can figure that out, do the math. So, okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there any discussion about going into executive session? Then we will adjourn. Sorry? I think, no? Let's do that. All those in favor of going into closed executive session for the reason described, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion passes 5-0. I apologize.